Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Hashtag No Limits. I am your host, Shelly Kino, and Hashtag No Limits is about people whose society has placed limits upon, but who are busting through those limits. Ophelia says in Hamlet, "We know who we are, but not who we will be." I believe that to be 100% true, and that there is no better example than the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. If you don't know, the caterpillar literally dissolves into its cells and then it reforms into the butterfly. While it's still in the cocoon, though, it has to struggle to get out of the cocoon in order for its wings to be strong enough to take it everywhere it wants to go once it gets out of the cocoon. None of that can be easy, but neither is busting through the limits that society is placing upon people. One of the areas that I realized many years ago are areas where we have a whole group of people helping another whole group of people bust through those limits are our special education teachers. Myself having been one, so I'm hoping that I have brought several caterpillars into butterflies in my time. But my guest today, Sean, is a former special educator, and he is now going to talk to us today about an innovative software program that is changing the lives of special education teachers. So without further ado, Sean, welcome and thank you for being my guest today. How are you doing?
Hey, Shelly, thank you for having me. I am good, and I'm calling in from sunny San Antonio, Texas.
And he says that because when I met him, he lived, how did you say it? Across the street from Chicago. And so when we joined today, I was like, "So how's the weather in Chicago?" He's like, "I don't know. I'm in San Antonio and I kind of live down here now." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So Sean, we met at an educators conference. And what was it that drew us to each other? What do you have for us?
Well, Shelly and I connected really out of a love for special education. And if I remember correctly, Shelly, I attended your session that you were
You did.
presenting.
Yep.
And I had a fantastic time. And I really love going to special ed conferences to really collaborate and brainstorm with people who are in the classroom doing amazing work. If you want to be encouraged and inspired, go find your local school. Obviously, ask them first, but
Right.
stop into a special ed class and you will leave inspired. I promise you.
Yes, 100%. I agree with that. I might be a little biased, but I still agree with that.
Yeah, so it was wonderful to meet Shelly. And, I think there's a whole crop of people out there really working day and night sometimes to support students with IEPs. And this is, I am on a lifelong journey, and I think, Shelly, you have been as well.
Yes. Yes. And so for anybody who might be tuning in who doesn't know what an IEP is, it's an individualized education program. And I am not going to show you the name on this one, but this is one. So you can see how many pages it is. Okay. These are very daunting documents. These are the documents that drive special education. They are very individualized. They have a lot of thought put into them. And that thought comes with a lot of meetings with different people and spending, like looking up different practices, checking off a lot of boxes. There's a lot of redundant boxes in there. Sometimes it's having to go back and look at a previous IEP to see if a skill has already been attempted to be buffeted or if it's never been addressed. And I think my understanding, at least, of this program that you have developed helps streamline some of that. Because I will be honest, in writing IEPs, the average special education teacher, let me clear that up, spends between 15 and 25 hours. Is that the number that you have been given as well?
If not longer. It takes a long time to write these documents.
Right. And that's for one IEP. And so if you consider that a special education teacher has anywhere from 5 to 25 or 30, or if you're a related service personnel person, like speech has its own category. And I've known speech pathologists who have 75 students that they're writing IEPs for. So when you think about the amount of time just on the paperwork, just on the document that's driving the education, not even the actual educating part and the lesson planning part and all the other things that goes into special education. That's a lot of time. And so I was really excited to learn about your software, because our mental health as special educators is just plummeted because we spend so much time doing this paperwork.
Yeah, wow, I have so much to respond to there. So first of all, Playground IEP, the company that I founded and now run, our mission is to build tools for special educators so that they can then better service and support their students with IEPs. For those that don't know, special ed it's governed by a federal law, and the IEP that Shelley was speaking about is a legal document, and it's very much a legal document, and it's written somewhat like a legal document. And unfortunately, they're dense, they're complex, they're formatted sometimes in weird and strange ways. And if you're not trained to read them, they're very intimidating. So you take that situation and you combine it with teachers who are dealing with a whole bunch of things right now. The last thing that they have is time. And these documents are very, very intimidating to read, especially if you have 10 or 20 or 50 students with IEPs in your class. It's overwhelming. Prior to starting Playground, I was the director of special ed in Chicago. And it was a lot of work to try to figure out, how do I take this really complex, dense document and present it to my gen ed teachers in a way that's palatable, that's easy to understand. And every school is doing this. Schools are creating IEP snapshots and kind of doing everything in their power to make it easy on gen ed teachers so that students are serviced. And I thought, this is crazy. Like, there's no tools to help with this. This is not right. And so when I left my school in October of 2021, I decided, you know what, I'm going to build all the tools that I wish I had as a director of special ed. So Playground really is a larger caseload management platform. And one of the things that we do is make it very easy for gen ed teachers to access that information in just bite-sized chunks. They don't need to read a 40-page document to know very tangible information about how to service their students. There's a variety of other tools that we have for teachers, but I'm sure we'll get into that in a second.
Yeah, and it's so important, like you said, that, I mean, IEPs are made available to the general education staff members working with that student. But as you said, it's a legal document. It's so daunting. In all of my time as a teacher, always making the available to the teachers, hey, if you want to look at the IEP, here's where you can find it. I only ever had one teacher take me up on that. And then when she did, she still didn't really know what the things meant that I hadn't already shared with her. As you mentioned, the IEP snapshot, I always tried to share with my teachers. Here in Southern Illinois, we usually start about the middle of August, and I tried to get them the documents that are the pertinent parts of the IEP, like their present levels of performance, their goals and objectives, and their related services, to the teachers by August 1st, so that they at least could have some time to digest as they were, trying to plan that first couple weeks of school and where everybody should sit and how the classroom should run. But I didn't always, give them every piece of it, because it was too overwhelming. And all those other pieces are, they're important, but they're not the meat part of the IEP. And as I was talking, I was focused on special ed teachers, but absolutely gen ed teachers should be spending time with that special ed teacher, giving input into the present levels of education and academic or functional performance, and giving input into the kinds of goals, and giving input into the accommodations. But again, time constraints often hinder that. So this is why your program is so exciting to me.
Yeah, we're kind of in a perfect storm post-COVID in special ed, which is you have really a teaching crisis. There's just not enough teachers out there. Post-COVID, teachers are leaving the profession. There's always been a special ed teaching shortage, and then that really gets magnified post-pandemic. So you have that situation. On the student needs side, student needs post-pandemic are ever increasing. And so you have more students than ever that require specialized services. And at the same time, you have like no one to support and service those students. And so something's got to give. And what I'm really excited about is actually technology bridging some of that gap. Technology will never be the end all be all in special ed. It's a very human profession, and it requires passionate, dedicated, hardworking people. It's human on human. However, there is a real opportunity for technology, particularly AI, to alleviate a lot of the paperwork burden. Yeah, a lot of the administrative tasks, so that teachers can actually do what they got into the profession to do, which is to teach and to spend time with their students versus spending time with spreadsheets and paperwork and technology that doesn't work.
Yeah. And I have to pause this wonderful conversation just for a second, because I just popped up and I didn't tell anybody else to do this. Fran is a follower and she knows how this works, but I forgot to tell anyone else who's watching. I love it when the watchers interact with us. So if you would do me a favor and just put, hashtag live and tell us where you're watching from. And if you're watching this in the replay, do hashtag replay and tell us where you're watching from. And if you have any questions or comments for Sean or myself, put that in the chat as well. If you are watching on Facebook, I think you might have to give StreamYard, which is my platform, permission to use your profile name and picture. Otherwise, it'll just, if you don't care, it'll just come up Facebook user. So I won't be able to call you out directly like I did with Fran. But so please let us know that information if you're watching. And thank you for watching. And if, like I said, any questions or comments, be sure to get them. And if you're watching this in the replay, I will be sure to share them with Sean to make sure that if it's a question for him, he can address that. Okay, sorry. So back to I was so excited to get into this conversation. I forgot the business housekeeping side of things. So tell us, and at any point, if you want me to pull up the website, because I know you have a demo on the website, we can show that demo, or if you just want to talk about it, because obviously being the person who created it, you know it inside and out and all of the great and wonderful things that it can do.
Yeah, sure. So we at Playground, we actually have two technology tools for schools. There's the larger school-wide platform called Playground, and then there's a brand new tool that we just launched. We're so excited about it, IEP Copilot. And you know what? We're gonna dig into the IEP Copilot first, because that's a really exciting new tool. And so what we did was actually build a tool that uses AI to write portions of the IEP. And so if you're not familiar with what gets written in the IEP, you usually have, the way it's formatted is you write a blurb about the student's present levels, what their strengths are, what their areas of need are, what they're struggling with. And then eventually you get into writing goals for that student. And the goals are really like, this is what we're going to work on throughout the next school year. I don't know about you, Shelly, but the goals, my teachers always struggle to write great goals. It's just a hard thing to do. You spent all this time writing the first part of it, and then you just got to do goals. And you don't just have to do a goal. You got to do 3 goals. And you don't just have to do 3 goals. You got to write 3 benchmarks usually for those goals. And it's just a lot. And I thought, I wonder if I could use ChatGPT to write an IEP goal. So I started messing around with it, and I was like, it takes a lot of work for me to do the prompt right so that it gets me back something that's very strong and formatted correctly.
And individualized. Don't forget that. That's the main part.
Exactly. So then I was like, you know what? I wonder if I could build my own AI tools. And so we started to build. And we built what now is IEP Copilot. And it's been used, I think at this point, 15,000 times by special educators in all 50 states and all over the world. We have people in Dubai and
that's so cool.
Yeah, so Obviously, you still need to use your brain as a special educator. It needs to be individualized, like you said, Shelley. But what is so powerful about it is it gets you 80% of the way there. Like you can now have something to work with, and you don't have to go and copy and paste from the other IEP that you wrote last week. But maybe
no special ed teacher does that, or copies and paste it from the year before. Nobody ever does that either.
Right. Yeah. So the power of AI is really incredible. Now, what I tell people is like, it is not replacing special educators. This is a tool to co-create. So you can write IEP goals, you can write behavior intervention plans. Same thing with the IEP goals. You can co-create, you can generate ideas on how can I support this student with this challenging behavior, so that teachers can actually spend their time implementing strategies versus spending so much time and mental capacity trying to come up with ideas.
Right.
And so yeah, you can, Shelley, if you wanted to pull it up, it's iepcopilot.ai.
Oh, okay. That's different than what I had ready to go. IEP Copilot, I can't spell. And by the way, Patrick Klamm says he's a big fan of Playground IEP. Is it .ai? Is that what you said? Or
yep, .ai, iepcopilot.ai.
Okay, see if I get this right. See if it goes somewhere. It's spinning. It's going somewhere. Okay. Oh, you know what? This came up one day when I was searching for your site, and I was like, why did it take me there? That's not right. Now I know it was right. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so this is our second tool that we've built, and
let's put those over here.
And I can show you later the larger platform. What's really exciting, and I'll make this announcement here, is that we are taking all these tools on the Copilot and adding them into the larger platform, so that schools within the
it's being weird. Sorry, it's not wanting me to. I got to move them back. It didn't like it. I was trying to move them to my other screen so I could share the whole window, but it didn't like that. So I've got to do something a little different. Sorry. Normally, I'm much more tech savvy than this. It's not being cooperative this morning or this afternoon.
Well, as you load that up, I'll kind of give the backstory of this. I was invited out to San Francisco to be a part of a hackathon. And I'm a little technical, but I'm not like San Francisco technical savvy. And I show up to this event, and I'm like, I really don't know what I'm doing here. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to build this tool. Well, fast forward to the end of that weekend, or I guess it was a 2 or 3 day event, and I ended up getting second place for this tool.
Nice.
The original tool, which then turned into this larger platform. And you know, first place, I'll tell you this, first place got $10,000, 10 grand. And second place got a picture with the judges.
Ah!
But that's okay. I was just excited to be on stage. It was wonderful.
Kendra Klamm says, have loved getting to see Playground grow. Thank you, Patrick and Kendra and Fran, for your comments. All right. So
we have the Copilot pulled up, and what we've done here is just create different tools for different sections of the IEP. This right now is completely free, and all the tools that you see here are going to stay free, and it's so free that you don't even need to log in to at least use the goal writer. So Shelley, click on the goal writer.
Okay.
And we're brought into a place to generate IEP goals. So Shelley, I'm going to have you generate one. You can pick grade level.
Okay. Let's see. I'll just pick 5th grade math.
Okay. Now in the skill area, before you hit submit, this is where we want to say, like, what type of 5th grade math goal do we want? Are they working on multiplication or fractions or whatever?
Division with fractions.
Okay. Division with fractions. And before you hit submit, what's cool about this is that you can really be very specific there, very broad there. You can even include, let's say, a Common Core state standard, or if your state have this, you can just copy and paste the standard right in there. And what this is going to do is, now you can hit submit, Shelley. Okay. The AI is going to consider all these things. You can watch this fun little GIF, and then it's going to generate our IEP goal.
Wow.
It creates our goal. It creates the benchmarks. It even creates activities for those benchmarks.
Oh my gosh.
And what Shelley mentioned earlier, and I will definitely reiterate, is like you then need to go in and customize it and personalize it for that student but you have something to work with. And if you don't like this one, you can generate a new one, and it's free.
That is incredible. I mean, that's rarely am I speechless, but I am right now. That is, I mean, oh my gosh, to be able to just have that information at their fingertips and for it to be free. And like you said, you could, to take a state standard, every state has slightly differently worded standards. I think in general, they're all basically the same, but definitely took a Common Core standard. Those are wherever they're implemented, those are exactly the same. And to put that in there and to get that in a matter of seconds, and you get to watch the fun little GIF while you're waiting for the
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Pop up. That's Sean, that's incredible. I mean, I just, like I said, I'm speechless.
Yeah, like just think about how I responded the first time I kind of put this in. I was like, whoa, that is cool.
Yeah. I can just see this. I mean, because honestly, when I would write the present level, I had the next goal in mind because I knew what the deficit area was.
Sure.
But I still find myself today, even when I'm writing or helping write goals for families that I'm working with or school districts, like coming up with that really correct wording of what we're trying to say.
Right.
And so to have it just generate so quickly was incredible. And I can just see the amount of time that this is going to save people.
Yes, you said it better than I said it myself. Yeah, I mean, this goes back to our core commitment to build tools that actually service teachers and make the job easier. I mean, teacher is just hard right now to be a teacher. I mean, there's just no way.
It really is.
That. And I can't solve everything, but I can hopefully alleviate a little bit of pain.
Right. Yeah, and if what was generated isn't specific enough, as you said, it takes you 80% of the way there.
Right.
And once the brain is triggered of, okay, go this way, it tends to be able to go that way faster because it's got the path laid out as opposed to having to chop down the trees and mow the grass and do all the things to clear the path.
Exactly. And we can do this with a variety of tools on that platform. So there's the behavior plan writer. Same thing, similar to if you just click on home again, Shelly.
Mm-hmm.
Click home. So these other tools, all it requires is to just put in your email address to use. But you can write behavior plans. You can get interventions generated for you. There's over probably 6,000 goals that are in the goal bank. And so if you were curious about like what are other math fraction goals,
Mm-hmm.
you can see what those have been. The text leveler is a cool tool. You can
Easy to say, right?
Yeah, you can take let's say an article from the New York Times and reduce the Lexile level. What I really like.
Wait a minute. Go back to that. Don't skip over that. That was huge. Say that again.
Yeah. So the text leveler, one of the hardest things about teaching students who struggle to read is, coming up with engaging articles. Sometimes like the readers are just at a content area that's just not really relevant or engaging to a student. For instance, let's say we have an 8th grade student, and the who struggles to read, and the leveled book is about like I don't know, rubber duckies. It's
Right.
just not really engaging. So the idea of the text leveler is like, okay, can the teacher take text and then convert that into a more manageable situation for that student? That is a tool that we are still always kind of tweaking and figuring out how to best use the AI to always give something good back. But yeah, I mean, it's similar to the goal writer. It's like, wow, this is pretty incredible.
Yeah, and so I can't log in because I don't want to. I mean, I
Sure.
guess I could if I just wasn't sharing my screen. So can I do that? Can I take a second to log in, and then will it give me more access to share a little bit more?
Yeah, I could also share my screen as well if.
Okay, yeah, you can share your screen. I'll stop sharing mine and you can share yours. Because I am just thinking, there was a lady that I had on, Dr. Maria Cleary, I don't even know how long ago. And she's got a platform called Read Easy where she's trying to take books that, would be appropriate, like content and socially wise for middle school and high schoolers. But as you said, that they may have a much lower
Yeah.
reading level, and make interesting books at their reading level that are at their their age level, as and combine the two things. And so it sounds like what you're saying this does is it automatically takes that, and AI does it for the teacher.
Yeah, I think transparently, that's the one tool that sometimes I'm like, it needs to try again. But we are definitely going down the path of like anything is going to be, it can be adjusted and tweaked for the specific needs of that particular student, which is just really, really powerful when you start to think about those implications on a large scale.
Yeah, that is incredible. I mean, just the first part, and now the text leveler, and I mean all the writing the behavior intervention plans. I mean, we could spend the whole time just delving into each little component of Copilot, because as an IEP consultant and working with families across the country to make sure that their IEP for their child is appropriate, I see so many things wrong.
Yeah.
And not even necessarily wrong, but that could definitely be improved or more individualized. And to have this tool where I could say to these school districts, if you go to this website, it will help us come up with at least ideas. Maybe we don't specifically use the idea that's generated, but at least it gives us a direction.
Right. I'm going to share my screen here and let me know if,
Okay.
Can you see this?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to show you some things. I'll show you the behavior plan writer, just to your point. Like, it just is so helpful to help kind of co-create. So Shelly, if you would pick a grade level for me again.
8th.
Okay. Ooh, 8th grade. And what spicy, challenging behavior does this 8th grader have?
The child is sleeping during class.
Classic. Sounds like an 8th grader. And so this is going to generate again. And this is probably not going to come out in the format that the IEP like writing system will want, but it's going to do a few things. So it's going to come up with a goal for that behavior, like to address that behavior, objectives, intervention strategies.
Nice.
Replacement behaviors, reinforcement strategies, and then how do you monitor it and evaluate it? This one that just presented is pretty bland and generic, but again, like if you were to feed the AI something really specific, it's going to come up with a whole long list of different ideas to address that behavior.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I mean, you obviously have been in special education, because all the parts that go into a behavior intervention plan, the intervention strategies, the replacement behaviors, the reinforcement strategies, and knowing what a behavior intervention plan is supposed to have in it, and what makes a good behavior intervention plan. So for those who are not familiar with why somebody might have, or what a behavior intervention plan does, would you explain that a little bit, please?
Yeah, sure. So sometimes students require support with their behavior. And that usually happens anytime the behavior is impeding their own learning or the learning of others within the school. And so a portion of the IEP, it's kind of adjacent to the IEP, which a behavior intervention plan. So there's a plan that's written to really address the behavior, but also like to understand like what is the underlying kind of what's underneath that behavior. And so the plan is written to address that kind of as on a holistic level, to really put the student in an environment where they can now access learning as well as their peers. Shelley, fill in the gaps there, but that's pretty high level.
Yeah. And with the behavior intervention plan, the idea of the intervention strategies and the reinforcement parts is, what are the adults doing differently in order to help that child be able to access their curriculum, as well as help others be able, as Sean said, if it impedes their learning or the learning of others. And so it really addresses, or it's supposed to, what are the things that are causing this behavior, and how do we address those in a more positive way and fulfill the need of the student. And so when a lot of behavior intervention plans are written, I see them more disciplinary versus, and so the student is doing a lot of the changing and a lot of the responsibility goes on the student, but they're truly meant to, okay, if the child acts this way or behaves this way, the adults are going to respond like this in order to prevent that behavior from becoming exacerbated into a full-fledged meltdown of some sort, or full-fledged crisis. And so having those interventions embedded in there helps people hopefully think outside the box. Because I'll be honest, I use AI to do some of my descriptors for my podcast, when guests are coming on. And the way that it words things is beautiful. And it usually knows more. I'm like, how did it figure that specific information out when that's not really what I typed in there?
Right. Yeah.
And it's because it's drawing from, hundreds of thousands of resources on the internet.
It's pretty incredible. I mean, we wrote a goal. I'm going to go and find it in my history here. We wrote a goal for a pre-K student who was working on toileting.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I have no idea what this is going to return back to me. And I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but like this thing was like, whoa, wow, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, definitely.
So like not only like the depth of it, like what you remember, but the scope of like how kind of throw anything at it and it doesn't sweat.
Right. Yeah. And it's got, all the steps from beginning to end. And even, that's walking into the bathroom. Like sometimes we don't think about that needs to be part of the objectives.
Right. Exactly.
So how awesome is that it just, independently entering and exiting the bathroom area? I mean, for some kids, that's truly the biggest problem. And we don't even think about that.
Yeah. And, my kind of frame of reference is high school special ed. But I was with a friend here in San Antonio, and she has a pre-K classroom, mainly students who are nonverbal on the spectrum. And she told me she uses it all the time. And I was like, wow, that is so cool that even for that context, it is still helpful.
That's awesome. That's just incredible.
I'm going to show you another tool, Shelley, that I really think is going to blow your mind, which is this IEP feedback tool. And so as a director of special ed, one year I was like, I'm going to give feedback on every IEP that's written in the school before the meeting, so that we write quality IEPs. Well, as you can imagine, that took an hour, at least an hour, to do like great feedback.
Sure.
On top of all the other things I had to do. So
right. It's a great idea on paper, Sean. Carrying it out, you found out differently.
Now, I will say that when I did that, like people wrote better IEPs, but I was like, I wonder if I can make this tool with AI. And so we created this, basically an IEP feedback coach. And so what this does is you can copy your present levels blurb, you can paste it into here, and it's going to give you feedback as if this is an IEP feedback coach. So to give you an example of this, I took an IEP that I wrote, or that somebody wrote many years ago, and I put it into just pasted it here in a Google Doc, and then I went and swapped out the name. So we don't want any to expose any confidential information. So make sure if you do this, put it in a Google Doc and just find and replace the name. So this is really a fake student. So I'm going to take this kind of the area of need blurb that was in the IEP document. I'm going to paste it into this section here, and I'm going to hit submit. And this is going to take a little bit of time, but it's going to come up with feedback as if it's an IEP feedback coach.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You just took my job away, Sean. I'm not telling people about this part of your program.
Or I just supercharged you, Shelly. You don't have to tell other people about it. You can just
there you go. There you go. I'll just take when they send the IEPs drafts to me and I'll plug them in here. Okay, perfect. We got it now.
You know, like any of these other tools, it has to be paired with obviously your special education brain.
Right.
But it gives feedback. It provides potential improvements. It then redrafts the text in a way that's more clear and easier to read for parents, like more parent-friendly language. Yeah, we are pretty excited about this tool, and really like the future. I mean, we are just scratching the surface with what we can do. I mean, these are the main tools. Now we're building more. Texas has their own standards, and so we're going to build a Texas specific one. You know, we want to build tools. Yeah, I can't give too much away, Shelly, but we have really exciting things coming down the pipe.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, just the stuff that you have shown me already is phenomenal, and I can see the amount of time that it is going to give special education teachers back, and hopefully, because now we need to go back to. So you take all this information from IEP Copilot.ai, and you've got all these beautifully written, personal, individualized information over into Playground IEP, and then talk about that and how then, because one of the pieces that I remember you speaking on was the ability for gen ed teachers to just click a couple of buttons and it pops up all the information as far as accommodations and services and goals. So talk about how that works, and hopefully that creates that more collaboration between sets of teachers.
Yeah, thank you for that intro. I'm going to show another demo. I think this is best viewed. You'll see it right away. So before I do that, I just want to, for those people out there that might be listening that have never been a director of special ed, let me kind of frame what these people are going through. Every school has a system that holds their grades and their schedule, and we'll call it a student information system. And then usually a school has a system that helps write the whole IEP, or it just houses that document. These systems, unfortunately, are very old and clunky, and a lot of clicks to get to where you need to go. And on top of that, a lot of teachers don't even have access into the system. And so to bridge this gap, there's a lot of spreadsheets. There's a lot of papers that are printed out, and there's a lot of confusion because it's just not organized in an easy way for teachers just to say, okay, that's my student. I know their needs. And so what Playground does is really tries to fit that gap. We eliminate the spreadsheets, and we provide the infrastructure of organization. And so with that, I'm going to show it to you.
Okay.
And I will share my screen again. And
I am, that's not actually where I wanted to put it. Okay.
So
I'm going to put the IEP Copilot.ai in the chat so people can find it there.
And it's free. It's free. People should use it. So in Playground, we're looking at this as if we've just logged in as a gen ed teacher. right away, I can see my students that I have in my class on the caseload. Like,
Mhm.
I know this shouldn't be mind blowing, but like, this does not
It
exist.
is.
I know
Right.
that.
For those who aren't teachers, so for example, okay, so he came at it from the director's point of view. I'll come at it from the teacher's point of view. When, as a special ed teacher, I could get in and I could see every student on my caseload, whether that was 5 or 50. But my gen ed teachers could not go in and see, okay, in, the powers that be assigned these 8 kids out of second grade to my specific classroom. They could not log into the same system that I could and see those same 8 kids. They couldn't see any kids. And so they would have to come to me. They would have to go to the office and pull up the IEP. They would have to do all kinds of legwork that they often just didn't have time to do in it. So therefore it didn't get done. And so for this system, for the gen ed teacher to be able to go in and go, I am Mrs. Smith, second grade, who's in my class. Boom. That's amazing.
Yeah, and you can see, things that are important to know, like what is the student's disability category? Who are the teachers that are supporting that student? Maybe on the gen ed side, like a gen ed advisor or a special ed case manager. And then in special ed, you have different service providers. That student might be receiving nursing services or social work services. That person, oftentimes, like teachers don't know who that is. And what you can do here is you can see like right away, here's who's supporting that student. Now, what's really mind-blowing is that we're just one click on this platform, boom, I'm gonna click on Aaliyah, and now her IEP snapshot pops up. And this is where now you can communicate to gen ed teachers, this is the most important information you need to know.
Wow. That's the IEP snapshot exactly right there.
Snapshot. Now, this doesn't replace the IEP by any means. However,
right.
Sometimes we don't have time to read 40 pages. You just need to read a couple paragraphs. And I'll show you right after this an example where this is really powerful. But here is like a summary. You can put accommodations, testing accommodations even, and then attach the IEP, right? So if someone wanted to read more, they can do that. A really like powerful example of why this is so important is actually for my student Lamont here. And you can see Lamont has a 504 plan, which those that don't know, it's more for medical accommodations. That's maybe a whole nother conversation, but essentially Lamont's receiving
right.
for, he has epilepsy. And so if I click on Lamont, what you'll see is that what we've put here on his snapshot is the seizure action plan.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That is so important. I mean, think about if your student is having a seizure, you're like, what am I supposed to do? And you're always one click from that right here.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So I just recently, I put out a reel because I had a student who had PTSD, and his triggers were known to certain members of the staff, but they were not known to all members of the staff. And I said, you should know this as much as not necessarily if you don't know the individual child, because in large school, you're going to not know every student for sure. But just knowing, like, if you are running across a student and they're having this behavior and this behavior and this behavior, that you might need to call somebody else or, maybe implement this. And I said, to me, it's the same as if somebody has a peanut allergy or has epilepsy. You're going to know that if a child is behaving with this characteristic or that characteristic, these things need to be noticed and be acted upon. And that is so huge to have that at their fingertips like that. I'm just going to sit back and not speak because, everything that you are showing me is so phenomenal and so useful.
Yeah, I think it's best described with this little story. We were onboarding a special ed team in Chicago. So we had we were in the school doing a professional development to get the gen ed staff members logged into the platform and familiar with how it works, and so they can go and view all their students. And I was going through this presentation very similar to how I'm doing it with you. And I'm interrupted rudely. The guy in the way back, I mean, it was a long classroom, way in the back. He just sticks his hand up and he goes, excuse me. And I'm like, yes. He goes, it's heaven. It's beautiful. And he was talking about the snapshots, because up until this point, it's so hard. It's so hard. And it shouldn't be hard. I mean, this is ridiculous that we're even at this point. But, teachers want to serve their students. At full stop. And we are committed to making sure that they can do that easily.
That's just evident in what you have put out, and it's just incredible. And I haven't seen everything. I mean, some of those boxes we didn't even get to look at today in the IEP co-pilot or on the playground. Okay, I do have to ask though. All right, because playground and IEP do not sound like words that should go together as an educator. So where did you come up with the name Playground IEP?
That's a good question. I think unfortunately there's like some trauma associated with the word special education or the word IEP. And it feels like a lot of work. It feels like paperwork, or it just feels hard. And what I wanted to be true about not just the name, but the platform is it is a place that is fun to be or easy to be. Like kids love being on the playground.
Right.
And I mean, at the same time, I don't want to put, I didn't put too much thought into it. I was just like, hey, what do you think about this name? And there are people who are like, yeah, go with that one. So what's funny is that there's been so many people who call it IEP Playground. It is Playground IEP, but IEP, here we are, IEP Playground.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I was one of those people I had to because when I was typing up the graphic for today and making the announcement of putting your name in there, I was like, IEP Playground. And I'm like, wait, is that right? And then I had to, I'm like, oh, nope, these go in the opposite direction. So yeah, but yeah, it's just, it's just not, when I think about IEPs, playground is not the picture that comes into my head. And so I like that I can now try to associate that, like, you know what, this isn't a horrible place. Writing IEPs is, I mean, I'm one of those weird people that I did enjoy it. And like, I liked the process, and I had a whole schedule for myself. I was in one of those school districts where we had annual reviews at the same time every year. And so I would have like 3 or 4 days of annual reviews. And for those who don't know, an annual review, an IEP has to be looked at least once a year by the whole IEP team. And so my schools decided we were going to all do them in the spring. And so I had processes set up, this is what I need to start gathering, 3 weeks ahead of time. And there were some documents that I could do not in bulk fashion, but kind of in bulk fashion, sure. Because it was just check boxes like the notification of conference or the recommendations page or, something along those lines where I could get a lot of it done, but then right at the meeting have to go in and finish up some parts. And so I did enjoy that process and being able to put it down on paper, but the majority of people don't like that. I mean, they got, and I did too. I got into teaching to teach, to change lives, to inspire the next generation, to make our society better. And you don't necessarily do that on paper. Although we have to remember that paper document, as you mentioned earlier, is a legal document. It is supposed to take a team of people to develop it. And then also to have that discussion, because the parent is part of that team. So making sure that everybody understands what's going into this person's education. And in case anyone might think that the only education the child is getting is what is written into the IEP, that's not true either. They're
Right.
getting all kinds of education. The IEP is written for the specific areas where we really want to give that specially designed instruction and take data and do assessments to make sure that these particular skills are being built up in this child.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Shelley. I think the one conversation that doesn't happen enough in special ed is around expectations, because unfortunately, what an unintended consequence I think of special ed is actually the lowering of expectations.
Mhm.
Whereas, really, in the essence of the IEP, the IEP is really meant to say, like, this, we have high expectations for the student, and because we have high expectations for the student, this is the steps to get there.
Right.
Now, if teachers don't know those steps or haven't read the document, then it's just easier to say, like, okay, well, I'm just going to lower my expectations for the student because I don't know what to do. And
Right.
that is a huge, huge, huge problem. And my hope really is to, like, through Playground, push high expectations for students. And at the same time that you push high expectations, you also push support, because both can be true at the same time.
Yeah, that's why I love the strategies portion so often, because I really do think, teachers that are there are doing it because they have similar beliefs to mine of, we're teaching the next generation. We want to do well by them. But as you also mentioned earlier, special ed has always had a teacher shortage. Now it's just been magnified because not only do we have that shortage, but now we have a gen ed shortage. We have a paraprofessional shortage. We have a bus driver shortage. We have a employee shortage. It doesn't, every field feels that shortage right now. And so to give them the ideas of, okay, here's the skill that you're working on, try doing some of these things. And we don't have to think of that on our own.
Yeah.
And, just the brief that we looked at, it was like, we'll use manipulatives. Oh, that's a good idea. Okay, I can use manipulatives to teach division with fractions. Now it didn't say the kind of manipulatives, so that'll be your next thing to think about. Like, talk about knowledge.
It's been really fun to work with schools all throughout the country. In every state, it's a little different, but every school that we talk to usually says something like, "Wow, this is great. Can it also do this?" And we are building as fast as we possibly can to get people tools. Because in special ed, there's a lot of steps that go into just getting to the place where you can write the IEP.
Right, for sure.
So
So we are coming up on an hour, and so I want to make sure. I mean, I know we have covered a ton, and but I want to make sure and give you the opportunity in case there was something that we didn't cover that we've still got 5 or 6 minutes that we could possibly cover that.
yeah, well, I would say to your question about why did we name it Playground, one thing that I didn't show you, and I can pull it up in a second, is there's actually tools designed for the actual director to alleviate, like, the burden of schedule, specifically IEP meeting scheduling.
Mm-hmm.
We can automate that process. We can automate the organization of testing accommodations. And I don't know, when we talked earlier, Shelley, had you seen that portion?
No.
All right, I'll show that to you. I think you'll find this pretty cool.
I probably will, because I geek out about this stuff.
Yeah, it's like in a school, somebody has to manage the testing accommodations, because for a standardized test, those typically need to be reported to the state or to the college board or the company that provides the test. And so what we can do here on the testing accommodation dashboard is we take in all the testing accommodations that students receive, and then we create these buckets. So I can see in one place, here are all of my students, my 9 students that are receiving the read aloud accommodation right here.
Nice.
I can't tell you how crazy these spreadsheets normally are to manage this process.
Right. Oh, I'm sure. I've never seen one like this before. But I can imagine, as what I had to do when I taught was I would send the accommodations for each of my students to our secretary of our school,
Yeah.
and she had to do this kind of stuff. And then she had to present it to people. But I never saw it. I just had to do the actual accommodation.
And so, here you can, even for teachers, they can see a roster of their students. They can see the different testing accommodations they're receiving. So this is a tool. And then the other tool I'll just briefly show is around scheduling of meetings. And if you're a director of special ed, usually, or whoever is scheduling the meetings, it's just so long and tedious. And here, if I click schedule, I can go and schedule those meetings. And what's beautiful is that all of my service providers, all the teachers, case manager, and the parent emails get included on my invite, so I don't forget to invite somebody in the meeting.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Nice little safety feature.
Yeah, because I always forgot to invite Nurse King. And Nurse King, if you are watching, I am so sorry. He was so kind and gracious. With the last few minutes, I would say, if you are looking to make a difference in this world, thank you, Fran. Thank you. If you're looking to make a difference, go be a special educator. You will have 100% job security for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And then if you are in a school or know someone in school, we are piloting with schools all throughout the country, and we would love to support your work. You can find us at playgroundiep.com. And the other one is iepcopilot.ai. And Shelly, thank you for what you're doing. And you are a master IEP coach.
I am.
I'm pretty sure I met with the master IEP coach.
Catherine?
Yeah, I met with Catherine. Yeah, we had coffee.
Oh.
Catherine's great. Master
yeah,
IEP coach,
yeah.
I recommend that. And
yeah.
Thank you for having me on here, Shelly.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you to everyone who watched us and joined today and commented. I very much appreciate that. If you're watching in the replay, make sure that you let us know that. And the best way to contact you is through either of these websites or just the Playground IEP website.
Playground IEP, you can actually sign up for a pilot there.
Okay.
Or you can just reach out, Sean at playgroundiep.com. Okay.
So you heard it here. Oh my goodness, all my teacher friends, I can't wait to share this episode with you because I know how much time this is going to save you and what a great resource this is. So Sean, thank you for developing it. And I know Ian is somewhere in the background of all of this. I got to meet Ian too. So, and all of you, I'm sure it's not just the two of you, but whoever is on your development team and what you are doing for special educators around the country. I'm sure they, can't thank you enough either. And their families, if you're giving them time with their families, you're giving them their sanity back.
I hope so.
That, I mean, that's huge. I can remember spending weeks before that annual review season. I didn't see my family. I didn't see them a lot during the year, but I definitely didn't see them during that time. So thank you very much. Thank you for being my guest today. And everybody who joined, thanks again. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.